Hello everybody, we are diving in to part 2 of answering your relationship questions. I did video 1 tasting all of the fall treats from Target, and I didn't get to as many of the questions that I wanted to get to at that time, so I decided to go ahead and film a second video for you, and we're gonna dive into it right now. But before we jump into my answers to your relationship questions, go ahead and comment below the best relationship advice you have ever received. I cannot wait to read what advice you guys have been given that has served you well. The first question that we have for part 2 is, what are 2 small, simple things that you enjoy doing together that may not seem like a big deal to others? I think number 1 is we love going to new coffee shops, like different coffee shops. That is like really special to us, but if you're not as big of a coffee nerd as we are, I feel like maybe it wouldn't be as exciting. And I actually know from past relationships that it isn't as exciting to a lot of people. Other things, we do documentary Sundays, so we watch a documentary every Sunday and we order takeout. If it's in the evening, we order Panda Express, and if it's the morning, we'll order breakfast, which is really fun. And someone says, I'm getting married next month, any wedding day advice? I think I gave a little bit of wedding day advice in the last one, just about how do you do it your way. So that's over there, but I think general wedding day advice is just be present, enjoy yourself. Like, don't get caught up in the logistics of like, this is supposed to be a certain way, or there's traditions, or I want to make sure everyone else is happy. Like, this is the time. It's not even like, this isn't the biggest day of your life. Like, quite frankly, it's not the most important day of your life. Your life is going to be so much more special than just this one day. So take off the pressure so you can actually enjoy it, because the pressure of it being like perfect is what makes it suck. Like, that's what makes it terrible. So take the pressure off and make your only job to be like full on like indulgent self-care and play. Like, have a good time. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that matters. When did you realize you wanted to marry him? What was it that sealed the deal for you? Gosh, like the marriage piece of this. Like, when did I know I wanted to like marry him, like do this forever? Okay, I have two of those. Number 1 is simply just like his full-on passion and belief in my career. My job is really important to me. In every iteration, like, work is always and has always been like the most important thing to me. I love to work, no matter what job I have. Like, it's one of the greatest joys in my life. Like, has always been, will always be really important to me. So past relationships that hasn't been supported, that people have felt threatened by that, and Obi's not like that. Obi is like full on like, yes, like, I'm rooting for you, I want you to succeed, your wins are my wins, like, let's do this. So the first sign of that, I knew like, oh, this is someone I could do this with. The second one was, so if you don't know, like, I've been married before, so getting married a second time was like really scary for me. There's a lot came up for me. I was really just like, had cold feet in a way that like completely correlated to the fact that like, oh, I know this doesn't always work out. And I was like, I need to go be alone for a while, for like a week or 2 weeks, and just be in my own space, my own mental energy. And he was 100% supportive of that. And the whole time I was there, I was like, I 100% like want to be with this person. The trip sucked. Like, I went to Montreal by myself, and Montreal's an incredible city. I love traveling alone, and it was just like the whole trip I was like, I want to be with him. Like, I am grateful that I had that time to get clarity, but it was not a good trip. Which is fine. I've had really great trips since him alone that like, I don't miss him in the same way, but like that particular trip, it was just like vividly obvious. Like, I know I want to do this thing with this person. This person asked, how do you balance having a voice as a stepmom but not being the primary parent? I think that I've shifted over the years. I came in hot. Like, I'm like a very proactive person. If I feel like there are things that need to be done that aren't getting done, like, I take a charge. And so because of that, when I first came into Ford's life, like, I started taking charge of like different areas of his life. that's exhausting. Like, that's an exhausting way to live, because at the end of the day, like, he is the most of a son that I have and maybe will ever have. I love him more than I love anybody in the whole universe, and more than I knew I could love someone. And still, he has two parents who are his parents, who are technically in charge. So while my voice is considered and is, in our family, I'm very lucky because Obi really respects my role and respects my opinion. So I think more than most stepmoms, like, my voice is heard. But at the end of the day, like, it causes me more stress to, like, demand that I get heard and demand that, like, what I want gets said. So at this point, like, I don't really communicate with his mom about parenting stuff. I communicate with Obi about it, but I do it in very much like a detached way. Like, this is what I think, this is how I would do it, but, like, what do you think? That is not because I wasn't asked to do that, but, like, honestly, for my own mental health, that is, like, the right place for me to be. How do you keep the excitement of first dating for the long run? This is something that we do really well. I honestly believe, like, Obi and I, if you see us out, I think people think we probably just started dating, because we are just, like, legit obsessed with each other. I think that happens because we have a lot of communication. We talk through all of our issues. We're very present with how we feel. We don't pretend like we're fine when we're not fine. Like, we talk through everything. And I think that keeps the joy alive too, right? If you're willing to go into the hard stuff together. And then I think also intentionally choosing to be excited about him. So if there are times where I'm not feeling grateful for him, or I'm not aware of, like, the goodness that he offers, I start taking note. Okay, like, what did he do today that brought me joy? And I pay attention to it, and that kind of reinvigorates him into my life. I'm lucky because he brings me a lot of joy. He does a lot of things to contribute to our life in a positive way. If he didn't, I would ask for those things. You know, if I felt like, oh, these needs aren't getting met, which I think is the other thing. It's like, we communicate the hard things, and part of the hard things is, hey, I have this need, I need met. Can we work together to get that need met? And we both always advocate for the other person to get what they need in our relationship. And I think because of that, we have enough time and space to where we miss each other and we feel grateful. Like, not only is this person great company, but they're also an advocate for me taking care of myself. Someone said, I'm married to a type 4, which my husband's a type 4 as well. How would you say you best communicate with each other? You know, I think in general, 4s really struggle with, like, feeling blamed or feeling like you're critiquing them in any way. I think that's a struggle for all of the image types. So I think making sure that you communicate from a place of, like, I'm experiencing, we are working together on blah, blah, blah. Also give positive feedback separate from negative feedback. If you do them together, they're gonna likely hold on to the negative and release the positive. Someone said, we are one and done. How do you field questions of when you'll have another baby? I don't actually get asked that a lot. But I think in general, like, if people ask, like, I'm just like, no, we're good. Like, we're really content. And my answer to that is, like, a close. Like, there's not an invitation for us to continue this discussion. And if someone were to push, I would either likely gently, like, appease them, like, oh, I'm like, gonna move on, or I would change the subject and just, like, let's get out of this. Or I might be really firm and say, like, actually, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. But that doesn't happen a lot for us. I don't know why. Or maybe it doesn't bother me, so I don't even know. Like, it might happen, I just don't even notice. How do you know the other person is a good partner for you? I honestly don't think you ever do. I think that it is just choosing to be there for each other every day. Don't stay with someone if they're emotionally, physically, or abusive in any kind of way. If you have suspicions that they might be abusive, talk to somebody. Start taking notes, document, like, what's happening. Look at the facts of the relationship, not what you hope the relationship would be one day. I think that's where a lot of us get caught up in staying with people who aren't serving us, is we hope for change, and so we commit to the change that we hope to see. We don't commit to the actual relationship that's here and present. So if you're in that phase of asking yourself, like, is this something that I want? Start taking notes. Like, pay attention. Like, what's real here? What were the good things from the relationship today? What were the bad things from the relationship? And are you noticing like more negative things? Are you noticing more positive over the course of like, say, a given month, you know? And ask yourself if you're being the best partner that you can be in the dynamic. And if you are, then like assess what's left. If you aren't, do 100% your part, and then the chips will fall as they will. You know what I mean? Like if you're going all in on yours, like 100%, then you're gonna know pretty quickly if this is a bad fit or not, because you're just like, well, I'm doing my part, so I can see very clearly like where we're missing. But if you're holding back on being 100% in love and available, you can't really assess the accuracy of what's going on because you're holding back. But again, that's not true in cases of abuse or neglect, those kind of things. You don't need to give 100%, you just need to get out of there. But in a normal, like healthy relationship where you're trying to figure out if you're a good fit, I would say go all in 100% and keep track, like positive, negatives, like what do they contribute to your life positively? What do they detract? And is there a part of you that's hoping for it to get better? If so, can you commit to what is right now? Because the likelihood of it changing is slim. Have things been different or harder during COVID? I actually think that we've had an easier time in COVID up to recently. So we loved quarantine. Like both of us feel like more relaxed than ever. Our lifestyle really changed. We feel more financially comfortable because we're not traveling as much. So there's a lot of like, our expenses went way down, our stress went way down. We've had like a very easy time social distancing. Now, recently, like with the passing of my dad, I've had a lot of like medical stuff going on. I'm at like the height of stress in that way. Like I have a lot of grief and a lot of sadness. In that way, it's been really hard for me emotionally to not be able to be with my friends. But our relationship is still better in a way because he is so good at the hard stuff, like the darkness. He's not scared of it, doesn't freak him out. He helps me to kind of step into it. So in that way, he's like a big comfort to me. And there are days where we're like cooped up with each other and we need a space. And one of us will usually just take the space we need, like either go sit in the other room, or he'll go on a hike, or I'll go on a walk. We still take space. It's just kind of in a different way than it used to be. What do you do with the times that you wonder how it would be if you had made a different choice? I love this question specifically because it's not saying, do you ever wonder this? It's kind of assuming, yeah, we all kind of do that. When I think about that, it's easier for me because of Ford. Because Ford's not like my biological kid, he wouldn't be in my life without Obi. And so if I had made a different choice, like I wouldn't be a parent. And I think it's like that for a lot of like Obi with his ex, like they're not together, but like that didn't go the way that they intended it to. But I don't think either of them would say they regretted their relationship because they got Ford out of it. And in the same way, it's like that for me. Like I'm glad I didn't make another choice. That's an easy thing for me. Also, I love my marriage. But when I think about like what I would be doing otherwise, like traveling full time, or what's the main one, I get like a little bit sad, like, oh, I can't travel full time because we do have a little. But again, the pros outweigh the cons, right? Like being with them is so fulfilling and so heart fulfilling that I don't really think too hard about the other option, you know what I mean? And I try to integrate what I would miss into my everyday life. Like I still travel alone multiple times a year so that I get that fix. You know, I went to Copenhagen for 2 weeks to write a book, or, you know, I travel almost every single month alone pre-COVID. And so the things that I would have done, I can still get a taste of in our current restrictive, kind of the inherent restrictions to a committed relationship. What is something that you each has to compromise on? I would say we don't compromise a lot, if I'm honest. Like we do a really intentional job of not forcing each other to compromise. I think compromise is not my strong suit. I like to have everything that I want, and I will do whatever I need to do to get it, if I'm honest. And I want that for other people too. So like I want Obi to have everything that he wants in his life. So if he has a need, I want to figure out how he can have that need met. So we don't compromise a ton. In general, I think compromises that we do are, you know, he has to communicate a lot more than he wants to. I have a lot of like childhood stuff around like men and stuff. So the more he communicates, the easier it is for me to feel safe. And so he communicates like an insane amount with me, and I'm so grateful for that. And you know, and I'm home more than I probably would have been. Like I have a home, like I'm stable in some way. I have to like do adult things because it comforts him, like save money, like work on paying my student loans, like we're gonna buy a house one day. Like these are things that I never thought I would do. I always thought I would like never settle down. So yeah, those are kind of like my compromises, and those are kind of the two. What is the best thing about being married? What makes you two happy every day? The best thing about being married is honestly I heard someone describe like a marriage as like having a witness to your life, having someone who knows if you're sick, who knows if you're okay, who is watching you and paying attention to you and cares about how you're doing. I think that that's the best thing about being married, is having like a witness, having someone who is doing this life with you. You're not alone. You have someone to text when you see a weird animal on the road, or something makes you laugh. You have someone to miss, that kind of thing. What makes us happy every day? Coffee. We both, like literally every single day, we wake up and we go, oh, we get to have coffee today. Every morning, like 100% of the mornings, our first coffee is like the greatest joy. And we have an afternoon coffee every day too, and we do the same thing. Like, oh, we haven't had coffee yet. We still get to look forward to coffee. That's the big one. Someone said, what was your, okay, this is serious potential moment? I know this one so much, so well. And actually I have two. I'm gonna share two. The first one is the big one. Like this was like the moment for me where I was like, oh, I might love this person. I might like end up loving this person. We took a trip to Knoxville, Tennessee, and there's a lot of like good coffee shops there, and I have a friend who owns a coffee shop there. He owns a couple. I think they own 3 now. And we ran into them and they were like, oh, these coffee shops are really good. They opened up, like you should go check them out. After we left there, I was like, man, I wish, which coffee shop are we gonna go to? Like he gave us so many good recommendations. There's so many new ones, like which one are we gonna pick? And he looked at me and he was like, well, why don't we just go to all of them? And I was like, this guy, like I love this guy. And that was like a big moment for me because, you know, like I had been married before, and in that marriage he didn't drink coffee, which, how did that, you know, how did we even get here? So he didn't drink coffee, and he didn't think it was fun to go to coffee shops. Like that wasn't his thing, and I was always kind of dragging him to them or going to them on my own. And so like for him to be like, let's go to all of them, which is what I wanted to do like in my soul, but I was trying to be like considerate of him. That was like a big moment. And the other moment that happened, we were walking, and he still does this. We're 6 years into our relationship and he still does this. And I was like carrying my purse, and we just ran normal normal like weight of a purse. And we're like walking from the car to the coffee shop, and he just, without asking, just takes the purse off my shoulder and carries it for me. And I was like, who are you? Like he always does that. If I'm carrying something, he will take it out of my hands and carry it for me. And I just think that's the sweetest thing. So the camera got really hot. I think that we're at the same place, but if it's weird, that's why. Okay, so the question, any advice specifically for 7s, mostly about being non-committal? Yeah, here's what I do with commitment in general as a type 7. I create internal short-term commitments for all of my long-term commitments. So even in marriage, I say like, okay, I'm gonna commit to this 100% until December. And then from December, I'm gonna commit to this 100% until July. And here's why I do that. Because as a 7, my greatest fear is being stuck in unhappiness. And so when a moment of unhappiness happens, I have like full-on flight response. Like I don't need to fight for this, like I'm out. I do that in business, I do that in friendships, I do that in marriage, I do that in like habits that I want to build. And so the way that I combat that is to create like a commitment deadline so that I can breathe through the hard times and make any kind of a lasting commitment decision out of the place of like neutrality, right? Because the only, like, once we get to the other side of like the hard time, I'm fine, I'm happy to be there, I can stick through it. It's just like that intense feeling of like, this doesn't feel good right now, I need to get out. That that's temporary. But when you're in it, it feels permanent. It feels like this is never going to go away. And so you feel like you have to like make it go away. And so committing to a certain period of time can help you to breathe through those temporary feelings of negativity and things not feeling great. And then usually you can stick through another period of time. So that's kind of my commitment advice for our 7s. You guys sent me so many good questions. I want to make sure I'm not repeating any. I think I touched on this a little bit in the last video, but how did you meet? We met when I was working in the coffee shop. He came into the coffee shop, wrote me a poem, put it in the suggestion box. I added him on Facebook. He said the first time he ever saw me, he told his friend that she's my sunshine. And then he heard a construction worker who I was friends with, who would come into the coffee shop all the time, saying you are my sunshine to me, which he sang to me every morning, and he called me sunshine, which I'm a 7, so like, of course. But Obi was like, oh, she's everybody's sunshine, and put the poem in the suggestion box for me, and then I added him on Facebook. And then I felt embarrassed that I added him on Facebook and sent him a message and was like, is this weird? And he was like, if you think I go into that coffee shop for the bagels, you are sorely mistaken. And we went on a date, and the date was great. And then we both, like, at the time, neither of us were like in the place to really be dating anybody. And we had coffee the next morning, and I was like, I really am not in a place for a relationship. And he was like, me either. And then I went to Nicaragua by myself, and the whole time I was there, I was like, why am I thinking about this guy that I went on one date with? Because I'm just like not like that. Like, I'm just not like a romantic in that way when it comes to guys. I dated like very casually, very detached. I was like, why am I thinking about him? He's not even here and he's on my mind. Like, what is this sensation? And he had messaged me while I was in Nicaragua, and we were like, let's get together when I get back. And then we ended up going on a date when I got back, and it was like a date that lasted 12 hours or something. Like, we were just gonna have dinner together, and then we just like couldn't stop talking. Like, we just couldn't stop hanging out with each other. So that's how we started. Someone said, can 2 people of the same Enneagram number have a successful relationship? Example, 2 7s. For sure. I mean, I think anyone of any number can have a successful relationship as long as you're both willing to do the work. If you're both willing to put in the work, you're gonna be great. In some ways, you might understand each other on like a whole new level. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. I get asked that question a lot, actually. So yeah, anyone can be in a relationship with anyone as long as you're willing to do the work. Okay, so my camera keeps overheating, so I'm gonna find one more question and close on that. How long did y'all wait to say I love you, and who said it first? He said it first after like a month, maybe not even a month. Like, we started dating in February, yeah, like a month. He said it, and then I didn't say it back because I was like, I felt it, but it felt like too soon. And he tried to play it off as a joke, which is silly. And then I said it back to him, I want to say like a month or 2 later. And that's when he came out that he had already said it. So he meant it when he said it the first time. So that's how long we waited, not very long at all. Okay, actually one more question because I get asked this one a lot. How do I talk to my husband about the Enneagram when he doesn't seem to have any interest in digging deeper? So when you have someone in your life you want to talk to about the Enneagram, but you don't know how to get them interested in it, I say use the language of the Enneagram and not the numbers. A lot of times the distance is because people don't want to be put into a box. And while we know that the Enneagram isn't about that, they don't know that yet. And the more we number at them, the more they're gonna feel put into a box. And so use the language, ask them really informed questions using the information that you've learned about the Enneagram to help them better know themselves and help you to better know them. And that way you're gonna increase your chance of connection instead of limiting your chance of connection through trying to pin them down. Just talk to them and ask them questions about it. They don't even have to know that you're using the Enneagram in order for you to get that connection with them, because the Enneagram offers a lot of really great language. So a good way to do that is to just kind of pull out a really good book and look for phrases for the types that you think that they could be, and ask questions related to those. Which reminds me, there was a question in here about a good physical copy of a book that is about relationships on the Enneagram, and I have a couple, so I'll grab them real quick. Okay, so I have 3 relationship books in my hand. that are about relationships. I have one that's on the way I haven't read yet, but this one is The Path Between Us. It's by Suzanne Stabile. She wrote The Road Back to You. This one is great for like a light overview. It will go through each type in pairings. It will talk about like how you react in relationships. It's really good, but it's definitely like entry level information. Then we have The Enneagram and Relationships by Ashton. Ashton, I don't know how to say her last name, Whitmoyer Ober. She is another Instagrammer, and it's really beautiful, really like fun and digestible, and she gives you like a ton of practical tips. It has a lot of like dating stuff in here too. It talks about your childhood tips. There's like listicles. It's really visual and dynamic, and I like that a lot. And then my absolute favorite book, probably one of my favorite Enneagram books of all time, and definitely one of my favorite ones for relationships, is The Enneagram in Love and Work by Helen Palmer. Helen Palmer is a literal genius and potentially like a psychic, I don't know, but she is absolutely incredible. This is like the most in-depth, like OG, really good. Yeah, the most in-depth, like one of the like original like leaders of the Enneagram is Helen Palmer, and this one is just top notch. So these are the 3 that I own about Enneagram and relationships, and I really enjoy. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I love answering your questions, so maybe we can do another Q&A. Let me know in the comments below if you have a specific topic you'd like to do a Q&A on. We could do business, we could do productivity, we could do self-care, anything you want. So just let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if you help us out, we're gonna do a giveaway, so you can win some free stuff. I don't know, sounds fun to me. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next time. Cheers!